after Boris Johnson, any minister can get up and say something that is just factually not true. And that just seems to be okay. And I mean, Dowden today at PMQs was a classic example of it, because he kept banging away about, this Conservative government has lifted 400,000 children out of poverty. And it's like, no, you literally just changed the definition of what poverty is. They changed the legal definition of what poverty is in order to be able to say that they had taken children out of it. So, he's saying, oh yeah, we've done this great thing, but like, we've all got eyes. Do you know what I mean? We all look around our friendship groups, we look around our communities, we look at, food banks, fundraising on social media and all of this sort of stuff. And we know that that just isn't true. So you can use whatever sophistry you like with statistics, but I think people know when they're watching that who is telling the truth and who isn't. And clearly it's Labour and Angela Rayner that were on the side of not only the facts of what's going on at the moment, but trying to really bring it back down to that human level of what it means that the cost of living crisis has got just so out of control in this country, and the government doesn't seem to have any grasp whatsoever of the urgency of resolving this. And they're quite happy to just continue to say, no, everything's fine. And I'm sure it is fine if you're Oliver Dowden. Do you know what I mean? It's... But it's just not a normal people's experience of this issue.
On that point, does it sort of thinking forward, thinking to the future and about, an incoming general election, you must kind of be wringing your hands at Southside and, your other Labour MPs thinking, all we've got to do is say to these people, say to the electorate, are you in a better position than you were 13 years ago?
And I think this is something that has been a real feature of a lot of our comms recently. In fact, I think our most recent party political broadcast was asking people exactly that question, because people that I speak to, I'm out door knocking every week in Warrington, have my surgeries every week, I'm speaking to people even on the days I'm down here by Zoom and email and everything else. And you say to them, what is working better? And whether it's, we've got to a point now, there's all this talk about sort of, between heating and eating that's gone on for a few years now. I'm now having pensioners tell me that they're rationing their lighting at home because of how difficult they're finding things. They've only got one light bulb in the house that's plugged in because their electricity bills have got so out of control. They've not had their heating on sometimes for years now, but they're now getting to the point that they're essentially living in the dark in winter. It's these sorts of things that I just don't think that they get and understand and actually care about, because all of us will have noticed, whether it's even on silly things like the sort of price of Lurpak or what have you, everything is just more expensive at the moment. Like, you can't cough in the general direction of a Tesco's without it costing you about 35 quid. Whether it's bus fares, whether it's, at the fuel pump, whether it's train fares, whether it's, mortgages, rent. I mean, the amount of people that I know that are having to either move back in with their parents at the moment, or actually parents having to move in with their adult children, which is something that I'm seeing more and more of at the moment. The children have moved out, they've got their own place, and it's the parents that are struggling and saying, actually, can I come and live with you? Like, this is not normal. And I'm sick of the kind of top end of the political class within the Conservative Party acting as though it is, and we can just, ride it out and it'll all be fine without them needing to do anything.
I think a lot of the country is minded to agree with you, but my question, the criticism that I would level at the Labour Party, and I'm not the only one that would do this, is say, yeah, okay, the Tories are failing, the country is in a dire state, but it's not good enough to just say, well, they're doing a bad job, we'll do a better one. Where is the compelling vision, the sort of programme for government, the broader picture about what Labour would do and how it would radically improve the country?
Yeah, and I mean, I'm very clear that it's not enough to want to vote against the government. Yeah, I want people to actively want to vote for us. We're not just the least worst option. I want us to be the best option for people to go out and want to actively vote Labour. And I do think that we have got a job of work to do. I mean, we're in a very comfortable place in the polls at the moment. That's a great thing to see given, the last few years and how bad things got on that front. But that's not something that we can take for granted without offering people that sense of something hopeful. You can't just be, we'll make cuts and stuff, but, nicely and better and stuff. That's not, no one's going to go out to vote for that. You might find that a lot of people stay at home, but, that's not going to be enough. And I think, through the work that they've been doing at the moment around kind of outlining the missions for the kind of broad brushstroke stuff, but, now us getting into that National Policy Forum process, sitting down with, all of our different trade unions, CLPs, other affiliated organisations, campaigning bodies, to try to get something that, within the context of a very, very difficult balance sheet that we'll essentially be inheriting, how we can make the best out of that. And I think there's lots of things we can do that aren't necessarily going to be, costing huge amounts of money, but will materially be making people's lives better. And I wouldn't be in the Labour Party if I didn't believe that was the case.
It's a tricky line or tightrope to kind of walk on, because I think half the country think that Labour are going to spend too much money if they get into power. And then the other half of the country is listening to Keir Starmer when he's talking about difficult choices. I mean, what comes up on the doorstep? Which school of thought is cutting through?
I think it's a real mix, to be honest. And, given that we're still maybe 18 months away from a general election, a lot of the talk is less about what's going to be happening in the medium term and with a sort of change of government, God willing, but more about how am I going to get to the end of this month? And for businesses in particular, the end of the financial year and all these sorts of, for some of our small business owners, I think what people are bringing up is much more immediate concerns, but it's making sure that we're pushing for those things, that we're, reflecting the difficulties that people are having right across the economy, in every sector, in every part of the country. That's something that we've got to be reflecting back at the moment. But when it comes to that longer term stuff, it is that mix of people wanting reassurance that, this magic money tree isn't something that we're basing our economic policy on, and it isn't, but also, wanting us to do something, because, we don't just want to be managing a country that's in decline.
He said that today, didn't he?
Just about to say it. No, you go. He said, what is it? Tree hug?
Yeah, you're hugging the magic money tree, that party. That's what he said.
Boom, boom.
Yeah.
Fuck me.
And you could tell from everyone around him just being like, that real zinger really landed that one. Really cut us all to the
bone. Who do you reckon around that cabinet table? Who do you reckon's got the most crack? Like when they all go for, like, I don't know, summer recess drinks, who's making them laugh? Who's got a bit of a sense of humour to them?
I reckon James Cleverly's got quite good banter.
That's a good shout. That
back in 2019 during election, we went to his constituency and walked his dogs with him and interviewed him. Honestly, he does have a bit of crack. He's got a bit of chat, and he also said we went to the pub afterwards, sat down like a couple of pints, a packet of crisps. He went, PoliticsJOE, you guys are more Tory than you realise. I said, James, do tell me. He was like, you're Conservative. I said, all right, sure. He said, you've got all these other media organisations around you. They're very expensive. They're bloated. They're big beast legacy. Very expensive. Fancy cameras. You two have come here. Small kit. Creating content. And you're disrupting the market. You're doing it cheaper, better, and in a more engaging way. You are a Conservative. That's
interesting, isn't it? How did you feel about that? Is that when you kissed him?
Yeah, and then we fucked. No, I'd never thought about it like that. I mean, look, yeah, I do. Does like being by being a disruptor? Are you a Tory? I don't think so.
Well, you're not a Lib Dem.
Definitely not. Definitely not a Lib Dem over my dead body. No, he was. I think Conservatives like to conceive of themselves as, like the entrepreneur, the small business, the person that's going out and, like, doing something different and therefore is finding success in that. I don't think that's like a necessarily Conservative thing. To be quite honest with you, if anything, I would, in the sense of small c conservative, actually, you're probably more on the side of like legacy and traditional media. The newspaper of record is probably more Tory.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know.
That was a long-winded way to say you agree with him.